Andrew Weeb, founder of Spark Infinity niche-based Facebook group. David, what is going on in Spark Infinity?
Spark Infinity has been growing pretty rapidly since January. We started with literally 4 or 5 members, now to well over 1,400 people, serving creatives and creators, poets, artists, visual artists, musicians, actors, actresses.
What should members of Spark Infinity be prepared for? What are the live shows about?
We like to interview people and get a sense of who they are, the kind of things they do, highlight them, and especially their amazingness, their personality, their superpowers, whatever makes them great. That's what we like to highlight in those conversations.
So how could members of Spark Infinity also benefit from Bump Global?
For one thing, there are so many amazing heart-centered founders of various niche-based Facebook groups that if you wanted to be interviewed, you could just put yourself in the middle of the storm and find all kinds of groups to be featured in and interviewed in all day long. And the other thing is, if they have the desire and the work ethic to build their own niche-based Facebook group and blow it up, that's another opportunity that's waiting for them. And I only see things growing from there.
Welcome to Spark Infinity Office Hours, where creative journeys unfold in real time. In these intimate sessions, our hosts open their creative playbooks to share fresh discoveries, current experiments, and hard-won insights from their personal artistic paths. Whether diving into recent breakthroughs or working through creative challenges, each Office Hours session offers a raw, unfiltered look at the creative process in action. Join us to explore the practical tools, mindset shifts, and unexpected revelations that shape our ongoing evolution. Quote of the day goes something like this: "Don't try to be perfect, just be an excellent example of a human being." Who said that? Tony Robbins. Totally applies to today's presentation. Today's date is November 20th, 2025. And if you happen to be watching this on any other day, well, you're just much better at time travel than I am. And I need to know all your secrets. Today's topic, we are continuing with self-publishing. It's this month's topic, I should say, not just today's topic. And I think, hopefully, my audio issues have been solved. Would love to tell me. Tell me in the comments whether the audio sounds better than it normally does. It should. I'm streaming inside Chrome instead of Firefox. I'm pretty sure that was the issue. Don't know why Firefox was mangling my audio. I'm using high quality equipment. I'm not saying this is the most expensive microphone in the world, but otherwise I'm using pretty high quality equipment. I expect it to work, and I think it should be working now. Do let me know. All right, let's get into today's conversation: production and publishing, making your book professional from manuscript to masterpiece. Although I honestly feel like we've talked about a lot of this already, these are the topics people said they needed more information on. That's why we're covering them. It might seem like we're going over a lot of the same information we've already gone over. It might seem like we're talking about a lot of the same things we've already talked about, but this is what you requested. This is what you said you wanted in this particular program. That's why we're covering it. All right. First thing of the day: DIY versus hiring out. As we've already seen, there are many things you need to be thinking about when self-publishing a book. The major categories we'll consider here as it pertains to doing it yourself or hiring out, because there are other things you could do yourself. There are other things you could hire yourself, but we'd be here all day if we talked about all of them. So the main categories we're looking at are format or design, formatting and interior layout, which is also known as interior design, and editing. Though, like I said, to some extent, we've kind of talked about these already, but this is the information you said you needed. So let's continue on. Let's first talk about cover design. Cover design matters a lot, might even be the most important thing of your book. Might be, but I think the title is pretty important too. I would say if you're not a graphic designer, it would be in your best interest to find one. I don't want you sitting on Photoshop all day trying to emulate what you see out there, because you're not going to know all the techniques. You're going to have to learn from scratch. You're going to have to take YouTube tutorials. It took me way too long to get good at Photoshop. I don't want anyone to go through the pain I did. It was difficult for me. It was not easy. I've learned to be a competent designer. Some people like my design skills, like to utilize me in that capacity. But gee, I'm not a graphic designer. I have that ability. I have those skills. But I certainly don't think of myself as a professional graphic designer. So if you're not a designer, let's not start from scratch. It's going to take you a long time to learn Photoshop. Even using Canva, to be honest, you're just using templates and stuff that people have already created. So yeah, there's some decent things there, but if you really want to stand out, and I think you do want to stand out, I would say prepare to invest in a good cover. I will also point out that there are some affordable services out there. You can find affordable designers on marketplaces like Fiverr. And if you're going to go with Fiverr, I would suggest trying out multiple designers. Give it to 3 people, give it to 5 people, because you're not going to be paying a lot per designer. So test out a few, get your cover back, see if you like any of them. Another great place to check out is Freelancer. On Freelancer, a whole bunch of people will bid on your particular project. So you'll be able to view many different iterations on different book covers and ideas, and you can pick from the one that you like most. And that's why Freelancer is great for a lot of things. That's freelancer.com. I'll also share my experience. You can find competent Filipino, Singapore, Indian, Pakistani companies. I tend to prefer, and I tend to go towards Filipino, Singaporean. However, there are other, let's say, overseas or international sources that can do a really good job for you and may be worth exploring if you want to save some cash. I had a lot of luck and help with Laganson Design. I don't know if they make anything anymore. They made a few of my covers, The Essential Guide to Creative Entrepreneurship, Start Your Year the Right Way, and The Music Entrepreneur Code. I think it was those 3 books. Oh, actually 4. So The Essential Guide to Music Entrepreneurship. They designed 4 book covers for me. They did great. I would have continued working with them, but they disappeared somewhere off the map when COVID happened. Hopefully they're okay. I hope COVID did not affect them in any negative shape or form, but you may be able to find independent services is the point. Maybe Filipino, maybe Singaporean, maybe you have a cousin in the basement who's actually pretty good at graphic design, but hasn't done it professionally yet. There might be a few options there for you. I would not suggest getting AI to do it. You can have AI make mock-ups for you. You can have AI come up with ideas for you, but don't let AI design your final cover. And also don't just give an AI mock-up to a graphic designer. That could also be kind of like, really? Like, you want me to make that cover? Because the graphic designer might have other ideas for you that would actually be really good because they know their stuff, right? Versus you just going, well, this is what it should be. I know too many people like that who are like, oh no, like I did this process myself and I went through a bunch of iterations and I used AI and blah, blah, blah. And they, through much travail and effort, they come to a design that they think is good. Okay, but maybe hear out the graphic designer as well, because they might have some ideas for you. There's also other reasons why AI is not great for this kind of thing. It makes plenty of mistakes, right? You might ask for, and this doesn't necessarily apply to books necessarily, because you probably won't use any transparent elements, but it would apply to web graphics and stuff like that. It doesn't really understand transparency or how to create it for you many times. Sometimes it does it right, but many times it doesn't do it right. It will spit out spelling errors, right? So, and these are things you have to really look closely at. Not like your book cover has to have a lot of text on it, but it's probably going to have your title and your subtitle, maybe maybe not. But it's at the very least, it's going to have your title and your author name on it, right? It's going to make simple spelling mistakes, and sometimes you don't catch it unless you're looking for it. Human beings make spelling mistakes too, but which is easier to fix. It can also contain hallucinations, like if you're requested a scene, maybe in the nature, maybe in the mountains with trees and all that kind of thing. and you just see an object off in the distance that's like, I have no idea what is that, a bale? Is that a house? Is that a half melted person? I don't know. AI hallucinates pretty consistently. Again, things you might not notice unless you look very closely at the kind of graphics that it generates, but that kind of thing is not going to be very attractive or professional on your book cover. AI is also not necessarily, and in fact, many times not able to produce the specs to the specs and dimensions that you need. So AI can probably not produce your final cover, period. Even if you wanted it to, even if you're just like, I don't care how good it looks or bad it looks, it probably can't give you the proper dimensions for your book cover or Kindle cover or any of that stuff. So that'd be another reason why to just skip the AI, go straight to the professional. And if you are going to design yourself, I'd still suggest get a second opinion on your cover, or get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people to look at it and say, I like that, I don't like that, this works, this doesn't work, or here's some suggestions, right? Do a bit of brainstorming. Too many cooks in the kitchen can ruin the soup, but a few people can certainly help. Another idea here is you can also test your design on social media posts, in your polls, on website banners. If you have a good amount of traffic, you could set up banners for each of your book cover ideas and look at which one people click most. Might be a good test to run, just saying. Maybe you could run ads like Tim Ferriss did, like on Google Ads, and test different titles and see which one people click on most. Just some ideas there. Well worth trying out. Let's talk about formatting and interior layout and whether to hire out or do it DIY. So if you've never had to format a document in a program like Word or Google Docs or any of those others, so like some of them will kind of do it for you. But if you don't have experience with that, it's going to take some time to learn the process of even just putting Roman numeral pages and then regular numeral pages. If you want to use 2 columns, but you also want it to switch back to 1 column, all that kind of stuff really can take a while and can be a little bit frustrating. And I've had to go through that process myself. The thing is, professionals are very easy to find. When it comes to something like interior layout, it's probably not a project that requires hours and hours and hours of their time. It might be somewhere in the 2 to 5 hour range per book, maybe even less. So it's not something that should be super expensive. It really just depends on what level you hire people at. I would suggest it's well worth looking at other books for inspiration, whether you're going to do it yourself or have someone else do it. At least get a sense of what you like, what looks good, what you feel is going to work for your book. And also just follow best practices while also incorporating some innovation, right? The whole point of self-publishing is freedom. Why not exercise that freedom? You're not handcuffed to having things be a certain way. So use best practices as much as possible, but also look for opportunities to make your book stand out and innovate. So still a good idea to use readable fonts. Absolutely. Still a good idea to create a table of contents unless there's a really good reason not to. It's a good idea to include page numbers. It's not relevant for just ebooks because you don't need to put page numbers in. That's kind of done automatically for you. But for paperbacks and hardcovers, so print editions, you'd want to include page numbers. And then other than that, why not take some chances, right? Step outside the lines a little bit and see what you can come up with that might be intriguing or innovative. Let's look at editing. I really feel we talked a lot about editing already in the previous session. So I don't know. There's not a whole lot of new ground to cover here, but here's what I'll add. New authors will benefit greatly from the help of editors, period. If you're brand new, I would even say up to, book 5 or 6. If you don't have that many books out there yet, you just use an editor. At least for the first 2 or 3 books, I would say they can help you avoid the same errors in the future, especially if you use the same editors. They're use editing processes that help you see, oh, I made this mistake in such a way that you're not likely to make it again. unless you're intentionally breaking it for a reason. Writing's like that. So utilize an editor, utilize them well, maybe for the first 1, 2, or 3 books, if you want it to be really good. If you just want to put your first book out there, I support that too, because bottom line, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of work, and going through another painstaking process of, here's what I would suggest you change about your book, and having 300 edits. I ran into that situation with Flashes of Elation, which was supposed to be my 8th book and ended up being my 10th or 11th book or something like that. So I know the pain of editing as well, but it's a good idea to do for your first 1 to 3 books, because it will reinforce some good habits. And even if you're doing it yourself, it's still a good idea to run it by second, third, fourth pair of eyes. It doesn't have to be a seasoned reader, doesn't even have to be an editor, just some people who are willing to go through your content, look it over, check for things. It can be well worth it, even if they're not professionals. Okay, next topic, ISBN copyright and legal basics. This is stuff that I feel people do tend to overthink a little bit. And my encouragement for the most part is not to overthink it, but we will cover the basics because these are things you will have to take care of, or some of them anyway. When it comes to ISBN, the easiest solution is always to let your self-publishing platform provide you with one. If you already went ahead and purchased an ISBN from some company or another, great. Use it. Make sure you have all the relevant information stored somewhere where you can easily find it, because these things have a way of getting lost sometimes. But the easiest way, whatever platform you're using, Amazon KDB or Ingram Spark or whatever else, they can probably give you an ISBN, and so you don't really even have to think about it. Another somewhat advanced tip. This is something coming from experience, because, well, you get ISBNs for all of your different book formats. So I would suggest just getting all of them right away. Unless the plan is, I'm only releasing an ebook or I'm only releasing a hardcover, and there's situations where that totally applies. But if you're pretty certain that you're going to do an ebook, a paperback, a hardcover, and an audiobook, just get all your ISBNs right away. And instead of customizing the ISBN number for each edition, just list all of them. Ebook, this ISBN. Paperback, this one. Hardcover, this one. Audiobook, this one. And just show that same disclaimer in all your book formats. Saves you time, saves you effort, also gives readers the opportunity to learn that it's available in different formats. So that's a nice advanced tip that I learned along the way. Copyright. The most important thing about copyright is getting your book out there. Don't sit on your idea, right? It really is, sooner the better, because ideas are not the domain of any one person. People tend to, I mean, this is a theory, I guess, but it's something I've heard before. People tend to receive the same idea, or multiple people receive the same idea simultaneously from God, universe, spirit source, whatever it is that we're dealing with, the field, if you will. Multiple people receive the same idea at the same time. Longer you wait, and I'm not saying everything's about first mover advantage. There are situations where you can sit and watch the market. Like if you're smart, right? If you're really shrewd, you can sit and watch the market, wait till someone else comes out with a book, and then have yours ready and waiting in the wings, improve on all the problems their book has, and put out something better too. So that possibility exists. But if you're determined, and I would say, don't try to protect ideas too much. They're not unique. I didn't come up with any of this training, as it were. Like, the information is technically out there. It still depends on how it's presented. It still depends on how we connect the dots for people. And that's why we relate to different people differently. Some people are going to relate to how I teach and like how I teach, and some people are going to like how others teach. But at the end of the day, don't worry. Like, I came up with this idea. I call this the super whatever. Don't worry about that stuff. Just like, if you think you've got something that might be a timely release, put it out there as soon as possible. And that also protects your book. That's why we're talking about it. you want to include a notice in your book as well. This is just really basic stuff. Usually in the disclaimer, if you have got a paperback and hardcover edition, you might also put this on the back of your book, or the back cover. Not necessary, not strictly. That can be a design decision, but that's a good place for it. The format is shown on screen. You got the copyright symbol, you got the year of the book, you got the name or the name of the company, and then you got all rights reserved. So that little snippet there is what you would put in your book to ensure proper copyright. And you can take steps to register it as well. Like once your book is published and out into the world, it is basically yours. But some countries, some specific situations certainly couldn't hurt to take advantage of their copyright service to register your book and take that extra step. There's one in Canada, there's one in the United States, there's going to be one in your country. So if it's a requirement of your country, obviously do it. If it's not particularly a requirement, but you still feel like it's something that would help you or put your mind at ease, do it. A few legal basics: to the extent possible, only use your own content. That's really the safest bet when publishing a book, because the moment we start using other people's content, that's where different situations may apply. Here are a few basic things you really don't need permission to mention. You don't need permission to mention facts or celebrities or places or titles of books, titles of music, or links. You can use links in your book, or public domain works. You can quote public domain works to the infinite. You can quote as much of a public domain work as you want. This is why public domain stuff you can pretty much repurpose and make your own if that's something that interests you. That's another way of publishing something without really having to put in the hard work of writing it in the first place. Other types of quotes or registered works could require licensing. And it's not going to be to the tune of, well, it costs millions of dollars to license this. It's more so going to be along the lines of it's a few cents per copy sold of your book. But really be mindful. People love to quote song lyrics for some reason. And I would say there's definitely situations where that's the right thing to do, or it makes sense, or it's just so good that you have to quote it. But anything over, 200-300 words, you're getting to that place where you probably need to license and give proper attribution. So just being mindful of that when you're writing your own book. Chances are, if your book's not selling, I talk about following the money trail a lot, okay? Chances are, if you're not selling millions of copies, or at least hundreds of thousands of copies, no one cares. And that's not an encouragement to just use whatever content you want. I'm not saying that. But there's a pretty good chance no one cares, and no one's going to come after you unless your book's selling like crazy. Unless your book is selling like hotcakes, they don't care what's in your book. But don't throw caution to the wind and just throw things in there because you can. I'm not saying that. But also don't get too hung up on, save some of your royalties, or that's the easiest way. Save 10% of your royalties. That way you should always have enough money to pay for whatever licensing you're owing. Formatting your book for different platforms. Basically, you've got ebook, print, and audiobook considerations. Certainly refer to the text on screen in the slide for some ideas and for some inspiration. Here's what I will add to this conversation. Ebooks, separate cover, and what I mean by that is pretty much every version of book that you end up creating will need a separate cover graphic. And the ebook graphic it has a certain dimensions. It's going to vary by platform, but the one they say to submit for Kindle is 1600 wide by 2560 or 2560 tall. That's the height of the graphic. 1600 by 2560. That's what you need your cover to be, or your graphic to be, for your ebook. You only need a front cover. You don't need the spine. You don't need the back cover for an ebook. It's just the front cover. That's also going to be different for print, as you can probably start to see. It's going to vary by platform, and you will probably have to adapt to certain requirements, dimensions, file types, and so on and so forth. A great tool to know about is Amazon's KDP's Kindle Create. And Kindle Create is a tool that allows you to pull in your content from programs like Microsoft Word or Word documents and format it within the program itself. So Kindle Create is a great program to know about, or piece of software to know about, and you can export to multiple types, the most common like EPUB and Mobi and so on and so forth. Take advantage of tools like Kindle Create. And again, the steps kind of just, they're different depending on the platform. So, and the formatting requirements. So you'll have to adapt depending on what platforms you're using to publish. I'm just talking about the ones I know. So Amazon KDP being one. The other is Draft to Digital. It will take pretty much any document type, Word, RTF, or file types that are readable via Word. Again, they just take your text and pretty much format it on your behalf. That couldn't get much easier than that. I think it's pretty great. Now, you might not be able to display everything exactly or have everything show up exactly the way you want it to, but the trade-off is you can publish your book really easily for free across all major platforms using something like Draft to Digital. And all you have to do is prepare a Word file. So it's great for that. Ebook consideration, you can use hyperlinks. Isn't that great? Like actually link to different stuff that's on the internet, because I mean, not everyone reading an ebook is connected to the internet, but a lot of people are because they're using their phones or tablets. So it's a great way to point to additional resources and your opt-in offers and your lead magnets and your landing pages and anything else, or your website, anything else that you might want to link to. Another ebook consideration, you can't use competitor links. And this is a really funny one, and it's a mistake I'm going to talk about a little bit later. I'll just give you an idea of what that means right now. Well, it's kind of arbitrary at the end of the day. It's not easily defined, but basically Amazon is scanning your book for links to, I think, other resources on their own website even, but including Amazon, but also stuff like Barnes & Noble or any other site it perceives as competition, probably even Walmart. Easy solution is to use a link cloaking tool or a link shortening tool for all of your links. So for the most part, I use davidandrewebe.com/ whatever link name I want it to be. Could be /Amazon, could be /Walmart, whatever it is I want it to be. And that way the link is cloaked. And it's also kind of shorter for my readers. So it's easier. Now with the ebook version, it doesn't actually matter because people can actually click on the link and they're not going to see the link. So they have that convenience, but you shortening the link makes it so Amazon doesn't think that you have competitor links in your book and you can go and publish it, because that's kind of a messy thing to clean up. Also, table of contents can often be automatically generated with publishing platforms. So I always have it because I'm really thinking in terms of my print edition first. And if my print edition's ready, my ebook version is basically ready. I just need to change some things, move some things out, add some things in, and change the formatting slightly, and away I go. If I have my print ready, then my ebook is really close to ready. But a table of contents is something that can be, if you're using Kindle Create, even in Draft to Digital, you may have to tell the program which chapters or sections should actually be included in the table of contents. But beyond that, it's automatically generated for ebook editions, which is very useful. Print editions, which is going to include paperback and hardcover. And I should address the caveat that things are going to be different for your paperback and your hardcover edition. So you have separate covers for both. Again, like I said, every version requires a separate cover with separate dimensions. usually. And it's just because it's a different size of book, or the cover needs to cover a different kind of surface area, which is certainly going to be the case with certain hardcover type books or paperback books. So you're going to end up having to have, even though they can be the same design as it were, they're going to have to be different dimensions so they wrap around the book properly. So also important to remember, though, you don't have to set up both. You're not required by law or anything to have a paperback and a hardcover. You could just have one or the other, or you could have neither. It's all up to you. Pretty flexible. The available sizes that you can choose from for printing your paperback or hardcover is going to depend on the service or platform you use. I'll just throw out some popular sizes, though, so you're aware of them. There's 5x8. There's 6x9, which I believe is called the Digest. It's the most common. 7x10, 8.5x11, which we should all be familiar. It's like the size of a piece of paper that you typically put in your printer, 8.5x11. And there's many in between. So from pretty small mini guide type sizes all the way up to something that's closer to a textbook or a binder or something like that. This can vary for hardcovers, right? So there's different sizes, but generally the same rules apply. You get to customize your interior layout for print. For ebook, there's not much room to change things. You might be able to swap out fonts or whatever, but even that. But for print, you got to make a lot of design choices, and that's fun. If you, again, this goes back to what I said earlier, but if you don't like fiddling with Word or Google Docs or other processors and layout tools, find a professional. They're probably going to be able to get this done somewhere in the range of 1 to 5 hours, but it could be less than that. It doesn't generally take someone who knows what they're doing a lot of time to be able to put this together for you. With paperback, obviously you can't hyperlink anything. We're not really in the age of books also being a machine, right? We're not there yet, and maybe one day we'll have books that are like that, but that's not the way things are right now. But you can still spell out your web addresses within your print books, and I've seen this more frequently, and it makes a lot of sense. You can use QR codes. It's really funny following the trajectory of QR codes to this point, because upon their introduction, they kind of had exhibited some popularity, particularly in countries like Japan, but really just were not adopted. And then COVID came along, and then suddenly QR codes, everyone was like, oh yeah, I know what that is, and I want to use that. It's really interesting. But now is a good time. In fact, I even used them too I printed up these little promotional postcard type things for my first book and put QR codes on them. So I might have been a little bit early to that game. Now they're popular. Now everyone loves and uses them. So QR codes, good idea for print books. Audiobooks. You're going to need a separate cover graphic. In this case, it's a 2400 by 2400. Unless you're releasing an audio CD, you don't need a spine. You don't need a back cover. You just need a front cover. But that's, again, very different dimensions, because this is a square versus like a Kindle cover. Important to know that there are different methods so you can read the book, but there might be reasons why, especially if you're new to publishing, you wouldn't want to do that just yet. You can have a professional narrator read the book, and you can find professional narrators pretty easily through the ACX program, Amazon's ACX, literally ACX program, or you can have AI read your book too. Amazon's got that feature built in, and it does give you the option of putting out an audiobook without having to put in a lot of work in a very short amount of time. So if it's something you want to test, I think it's still at the experimental stages, right? But you can have AI read your book. It's quick and an easy solution. You can't put hyperlinks in your book. How would you do that? I guess once we get the hologram, maybe then people can tap on something on screen and be taken somewhere. But you can still have you or your narrator or AI read out web addresses, right? And you'll need a proper script, or you'll need to prepare your script. So you have your finished manuscript, right? But it's got a whole bunch of other stuff in there. So like, especially your print edition, you've got a disclaimer. Well, you don't really need your narrator to read most of that disclaimer. There might be little sections that you keep, but you probably don't need them to read the whole thing. So you'd remove that. You don't need your table of contents, right? You might leave some links and have them read them like web addresses out loud. You might remove some or just save them until the end, or not, or just not include resources sections or appendix sections or notes sections and things like that. So you will, and it's just a good thing to be mindful of, if you want to create an audiobook version as well, you have to clean up your manuscript, remove things that don't need to be read, make sure it's ready, especially if you're going to get someone else to read it. You can sort of improvise if you're the one doing it, knowing which sections need to be in and which need to be out. But you're probably still going to end up spending more time in the studio rather than not having your script prepared. Also, nowadays, it's not uncommon to see, this is kind of a cool feature, I would say. It's not uncommon that authors are being interviewed for their own audiobooks now. And that's being kind of tacked on for each chapter, like after each chapter is being read. That might be a cool thing to prepare for as well. Nice little bonus ad for your readers or your listeners. And people might enjoy hearing what you have to say about each chapter in your book, depending on the type of book it is. If you're doing it yourself, there's a lot of requirements, a lot of specs that you do need to be mindful of when it comes to audiobooks. And the reason I'm telling you this really is because unless you kind of have a good sense of what this means or how to do this stuff, you're either going to want to go to a studio to record and have the producer figure this out for you, which is likely, but you're going to have to pay some money, or you're going to get a narrator to do it for you. You'll probably still pay the narrator something, but some narrators are willing to work for just royalties on your book. So good to be mindful of that. But you're going to have to make sure the volume is between -23 dB and -18 dB RMS. I'm already talking Greek to some of you, and I know that. The peak levels need to be less than -3 dBs. The noise floor needs to be less than -60 dB RMS. And you need to create a CBR MP3 file, 192 kbps or higher with 44.1 kilohertz. Some of you got what I just said, but many of you, I'm talking Greek. This is why it might be a good idea if you're going to do the audiobook version to work with a professional in some capacity, either a narrator or a producer. I have the ability to do most of this myself. I'm pretty familiar with the process. I've got equipment, as you can see. Wouldn't be too hard for me to do this even from home. But for a lot of people, that technical stuff can be a little intimidating. Pricing strategy. This is an exciting topic. And at the same time, because I know a lot of people have asked, and they need to know about this stuff. And at the same time, you're a little bit limited in terms of what you can do with your price. Anyway, I'll give you some ideas and I'll give you some thoughts and I'll give you some things to mull over. Because at the end of the day, pricing strategy alone is its own course. We could spend a lot of time on that. We might even be able to spend a full month on that. Maybe not quite, but we'd be able to spend at least 1 or 2 sessions just talking about pricing. So we're just going to glance over a lot of things here. But for books, this is what I would say. For ebooks, for Kindles, really between $2.99 and $9.99 is the norm. Does it have to be between $2.99 and $9.99? No, but you can't really go a whole lot cheaper. Amazon doesn't let you. And if you go above $9.99, people's sense of value about ebooks, it's got to be something that they really want or they really need to pay a whole lot more for it. So just being mindful of reader behavior as well as your overall strategy. Those things do come into play. You can price differently depending on your strategy. We'll look at that from a few different angles here as we continue to talk about pricing, but you might price it differently depending on what you're trying to accomplish, maybe drive people to another website. And then when they come to this website, they see the price is higher, so they don't feel like buying. But if they go over here, at a lower price, they'll buy it. Stuff like that. You can also use, and I would suggest this for ebooks especially, use book promotions. Amazon's got this feature built in. I would imagine most distribution or self-publishing platforms have this all built in. You can use book promotions to make your book free for a few days. That's a great time to get everyone you know to go and download the book, right? To make it, first of all, hey, I'm just making sure that I got my books up on my platform. I'm just making sure everything works, because you go and click buy. It's $0 right now. Go buy my book. So you can encourage all your people to go and do that. There has a couple of other benefits / reasons to do that. One is because it'll boost your rank. So the more your rank is higher, the rank of your book is higher in a store like Amazon, the more visibility you get. The more visibility you get, the more people click, the more people click, the more people buy. Another reason is because it drives reviews. And you might have to be intentional about this. In other words, you might want to ask your friends when you send everyone there to download your book for free, hey, could you also leave a review on Amazon? It'll make a big difference. You're getting the book for free anyway. Maybe you could read the first 1 or 2 chapters. It's a big commitment to ask people to read the whole thing. And unless your book's really flipping excellent, they're not going to. But get them to read a couple chapters and read it and leave a review. That's going to help you. That's going to boost your book rankings and the algorithm and all that good stuff. Print editions. Amazon, again, this will vary depending on the platform. Amazon lets you price it between $10.67. I don't know why the number is so arbitrary. It just is. And $250 US. Very rarely would you price a book at $250. But again, there can be strategy at play. I looked at the bestsellers today on Amazon, and they were all priced pretty well between 16 to 27 USD. That's the most common among bestsellers. But I've seen books that were 33, 40, 50. So you can find some books at a higher price point, and there might be a good reason for that. It might be a big book. It might be a hardbound book. It might be a special edition book. Those can still become bestsellers without having to be in 16 to 27 range. But that would be good general space to be in. But just keep in mind, it's not a race to the bottom. It's never a race to the bottom. And competitive pricing is just an awful idea. I feel like this is where a lot of people end up. They look at all their competitor books, they price it all out, and they average it out, and then price their book in the middle. Don't do that. That's doesn't do any favors for you, because basically what you're saying is, well, I might not be as good as this guy, but I might be better than this guy or this girl, right? So you're like, my book is this good. That's what you're saying. So subconsciously, whether you know it or not, it's not that a higher priced book is better. It frequently isn't, or it isn't necessarily for sure. But that's the perception you're creating. Oh, I'm not as good as this guy, so I'm just going to price in the middle and like pretend that I matter. Don't do that. Don't do competitive pricing with books. That's a horrible idea. That's what AI is going to tell you to do. AI is full of crazy ideas. I would say don't. Okay. Premium and bundles. These types of offers give you maximum flexibility. I know that on Amazon, they've got ability to create series. I think you can sell multiple books as bundles or series. So they've got that flexibility as well. But I think the greatest advantage or the greatest opportunity is using your own platforms, using other means of selling your book. We'll talk more about kind of extended distribution in time here, but like you can use ClickFunnels, you could use Collect, you could use Gumroad, you could use other ways to deliver your book using any sort of formats or means that you want, physical or digital, or bundled with other things. That's what we're talking about here anyway. You can bundle your books with countless things. It could be templates, frameworks, live presentations, videos, interviews, workbooks, additional ebooks, right? It's just, there's a never ending list of possibilities. Podcasts, link to podcasts, links to other books. If you've curated stuff and you know stuff that people should know about, and it's really cool, you can bundle your books in so many different ways, and you can use book funnels, stuff like that. That will be what I talked about briefly, or kind of hinted at briefly, with ClickFunnels and Kleck, and using platforms like that to sell your books. You can set up an entire funnel where people are taken to your book offer, and then they're presented with, well, should I get the audiobook? Maybe not. Order bump. Next page, your $120 course. Next page, your $300 mastermind, whatever it is. You're taking people through a few different steps, and you're using your book to generate leads. You're using your book to get a little bit of customer information. Who cares about the cash? These offers are oftentimes free plus shipping. Anyway, so you're asking your customer to pay somewhere between $9 and $20 to pay for shipping, and you're sending them the book. So they're getting a free book. The free book was there. It doesn't matter the amount of money. You're not going to make money off of a $9 to $20 for your book. It's just not going to happen, because shipping costs are pretty high. What that is you're getting their customer information. Now you have a chance to interact with them in a couple different ways, whether you know it or not. And these are the most powerful ways. 1, email, right? Because you'll have their email address. 2, print or direct mail. You can use print mail to follow up. That's powerful. You can send birthday cards. You can send Christmas cards. You can send newsletters. You can send sales letters. I've done this before. So the point of doing something like that, we're not here to talk about funnels exclusively, but that is one of the things that funnels do accomplish. I'll show you a couple things that I've created. Here's one. You can tell the videos from a couple years ago because my hair was dyed red at the time. It was something I had to do to complete on my end. It was probably a bad idea. I don't think the red really suited me. It kind of looked better when it was faded like it was in the video there, but it wasn't my best choice. But hey, I did it. I tried it, and it was interesting. So this is the Productivity, Performance, and Profits Black Book. This is one of those long scrolling pages with a lot of information, a lot of testimonials, a lot of sales copy. But all I'm trying to do is convince people and tell them, or really persuade them, not trying to convince them, but persuade them. Hey, I've got something really cool here. It's an award-winning book. It's a hardcover. It's got my best stuff in it about how to get stuff done in your life. And it's suited to all kinds of independent creators. All I'm asking is you pay for shipping. That's all I'm asking. And this gives me the ability to then say with an order bump, hey, would you like the audio program? And on the next page, people can say yes or no. I'm not forcing them into anything. If the book is all they want, that's all they buy. And some people have done that. But I'm just putting this stuff in front of them because I don't make money on the book. Right? This is still basically a lead magnet. This is something free I'm giving away. And a book is a lot of value to give away. People don't really realize that. It's perhaps more valuable than a live presentation or a podcast episode or an audio recording. At least from my perspective, with the amount of time and effort goes into it. Surprising that most books sell for $15 to $25. Really. But that's all this page is here's my book. If you get it, you get a bunch of bonuses. That's not really on the page right now, but I'm going to put it on the page for sure. And you can get the audiobook if you want. And on the next page, it's going to be, hey, by the way, do you want to join my membership? You're here. You learned a little bit about me. You got the book. Now, how would you like to be a part of a community of other creators and keep learning and take some courses, learn more? That's the offer. So this would be a book funnel, or an example of a book funnel. Here's one, and these are all experiments. It's not like they're working perfectly or they're working exactly as they like or they're driving millions of sales. Not like that. But these are experiments. These are different ways of engaging my audience. This is something different I tried. I said, okay, for my book, Digital Nomad, I'm going to sell the ebook version. This, because I don't know how much I want to make every book available for free plus shipping. I might, That might be another experiment I try, but it's actually a lot of work to put that all together for every single one of my books. I've got 13 books now. So putting together a free plus shipping offer, again, I'm not earning a cent on that ever. I'm probably losing money on that. It's just for the hope of being able to continue to communicate with that customer and perhaps being able to bring other products to them in the future. That's all this process is. With Digital Nomad, I'm trying something slightly different. I'm saying, here are the 6 bonuses you get when you buy this ebook for $10. That's it. So you're getting over $249 of value. Realistically, it's way more than that, but I'm saying, hey, it's 6 ebooks. So plus the Digital Nomad. So it's really 7 ebooks. That's what you're getting. And what do you think? Like, it's $250 of value and you're getting it for $10. So I thought I would try that with my Digital Nomad. So those are to just deepen your understanding, deepen your knowledge of the possibilities of premium and bundling and book funnels and all that sort of thing, which is a rabbit trail we could spend a lot of time on. But we do need to close out this because there's a lot we've covered here and there's still a little bit more we need to get through. These are the questions you asked. These are the things you wanted to know about. We're diving into them. Choosing the right distribution channels. I would not overthink this too much. Unless you have a strategic reason to limit distribution, wider distribution is best. Just go with wider distribution right away. Pay a little bit of extra money if you have to. Maybe, depending on the distribution service you choose, you will. But there are a lot that are available for free or technically free that let you put their book on your website in exchange for some of your royalties. Most of the time, these are very good, very fair deals, unless you're using some weird website that no one's ever heard of, bookburner.com or something like that. Maybe that's a thing. I don't even know. I need to think of something even weirder than that, like bookoctopuspickles.com, right? If you're using something like that, then I can't guarantee nothing. But if you're using some of the main platforms, Ingram, Spark, Lulu, Amazon, KDP, these are all fair deals, okay? So I don't like you. There are strategic reasons why you might limit distribution. Maybe you have international rollout. So you're saying in the first quarter of 2026, I'm going to be in the United States. So I'm launching only in the United States. But guess what? In the second quarter of 2026, I'm going to be in Canada. So I'm launching only in Canada. And then you could, like, when you have a schedule or an event schedule or speaking schedule or something that coincides with these strategic release dates, then maybe you limit distribution channels. Or if you only want people to buy through your website, that might be another reason. So there might be strategic reasons, but if you don't have them and you haven't thought about them, chances are it's not something you pull out of a hat, okay? So otherwise, just go with wider distribution early. It benefited my book, The New Music Industry, my first book. It'll probably benefit yours as well. Direct-to-reader models can still work, even if your book is available on major platforms. A lot of people think that, oh, because I'm doing the direct-to-reader model and I'm only selling my book through ClickFunnels or Quick or whatever other solution you use, that it should not be on Amazon or it should not be on Barnes & Noble. You don't have to make that trade-off. Russell Brunson sells his books through his website on ClickFunnels, and he sells them through Amazon. You can find his books elsewhere. It's not a trade-off. It's not either or. Maybe in some cases it is, again, but if you don't have any strategic reasons, it's not an either or. You can do both. One of my books, The Music Entrepreneur Code, that one sold very well through the pandemic and through some of the interviews I did within the music community. And it's crazy because, I mean, I'd already been thinking and stewing about this a lot, but I came out with a few different versions of the Music Entrepreneur Code. There was the ebook of, obviously, the Kindle ebook, but that got repurposed as eMobi and EPUB, or Mobi and EPUB, I think are the ones. So it got repurposed as those. There was the paperback version. And then there was the 2022 edition, which also had the ebook and paperback. Then there was a hardcover version. And also on my website, was a special edition PDF version. And that's just a small sample of the different types of iterations or different formats that your book can take. That's just the beginning. There are so many other ways you can repurpose or create new iterations of your book. But that special edition PDF, and I did sell it for not a lot of money. This was basically my lead magnet. This was basically my loss leader. This was basically my way of connecting with an audience and finding an audience and getting their information so that I could continue to follow up with them. So that's why I sold it at like $5, but it helped. It helped the book sell a lot. And and I still sold different formats of the book. So there's different strategies there. There's different formats that can be created that could be to your benefit. Extended distribution is available and you can get creative with it. Now you might find services that help you put your book in certain niche, certain corners of the web, certain independent stores, certain unknown or unconventional or grocery store or whatever it is. You might be able to find some services like that. In addition to that, and maybe you utilize them, it depends. Like maybe that's your strategy. Maybe your book belongs in a yoga studio and there's somebody who distributes to yoga studios. Like maybe you have to end up doing it yourself, depending on the scenario. But what if there was a service that did that? Well, there you go. Take advantage. But I'm also talking about stuff like Gumroad. I don't know. Some of these are like marketplaces, tools that you can take advantage of, e-commerce plugins, stuff like that. So it's like Gumroad, Sellfy, Patreon. You could have people support you through donations and monthly recurring donations. And you could put your book up there and lock it under a certain price point or donation. There's PayHip. There's Big Cartel. You could install WooCommerce on your WordPress site and sell your book using WooCommerce. You could set up a Shopify e-commerce store and sell your book through Shopify. You could sell your book through Teachable. There's a lot of different options. You can turn your book into an online book. You could use like a lesson platform and have one page at a time. And this is lesson 1 and people click on the next one, lesson 2, chapter 2. There's so many different ways to present a book when it comes right down to it. So that's what I mean when I say extended distribution and formatting. Let's talk about launch timeline and pre-launch checklist. Besides what's already there, honestly, you don't have to follow any strict plan. I suggest making a plan. Making a plan is important. It helps you think about all the factors, all the assets, all the things you need to prepare to make sure that your book does what you hope it'll do. There's no guarantee it's going to do what you hope it'll do, but it has you think about strategy. Like how much time and effort am I willing to put into strategy? How much time and effort am I willing to put into promotion? And that might give you a realistic number as far as how many books you'll sell and what sort of royalties you could expect. So it can be worthwhile exercise, if nothing else, just to think through all the factors. I would not worry about getting it right or getting it perfect. Again, the slide on screen kind of maps out a workable process. Some of this stuff you don't necessarily need to think about. You don't need to do it in this exact order. Some of it I would just complete well in advance. Why would you wait 4 to 2 weeks or 6 to 4 weeks to build your website or build your landing page? You could just start building your landing page right now. Why? Why wait? But the bottom line is, have a plan and don't worry about trying to get it perfect or right. Timelines can be adjusted pretty well indefinitely, assuming you haven't set up a pre-order and announced a launch date. So especially with pre-orders on Amazon and stuff like that, it can be pretty sticky. I think they only let you change your pre-order date once. And despite allowing you to do that, it's still within a narrow, I think they maybe let you do like adjust by a month or something like that. It's not like years. So be careful if you're setting up a pre-order, but if you got a pre-order, just deliver. But otherwise, you can move the timeline to suit you. So don't feel too pressured. What are the essentials? We talked about them last time. We talked about them. Get your title, subtitle, description, keywords, categories, manuscript, and cover design in order. That's it. You'll have to enter your price into the book, but you can change this later. You can change your title later. You can change you can change all these things later if you need to. You could even just set up a draft for now. You don't even have to launch your book fully. So go into Amazon KDP or whatever it is you're using, set all of this up. Don't submit it for distribution just yet. Don't submit it. Don't publish it just yet. But you can get that information in there right away and edit it later. Not a big deal. What are the next steps? Depends. And it depends a lot on what you expect to do or what you expect to be able to do or what you're hoping to be able to do with your book. Here are some of the things I would think about, but honestly, the laundry list goes far beyond this. You might update your website. You might prepare some new blog posts and announcements for your book. You might set up a book funnel like we looked at and talked about earlier. You might prepare other types of announcements. Maybe it's for a video announcement. Maybe for it's a podcast announcement. Maybe for it's a social media announcement. You might prepare your social media posts, or you might sawdust your social media posts from your blog posts. You might prepare advanced praise and reviews. I think that's something worth prioritizing, is getting some praise, getting some reviews before your book's even out there. That can be good marketing material, I found. So it's worth doing, especially if you don't have the confidence, or you're like, I need a little bit of extra boost. Nobody's heard of me. I think I've got a good book, but nobody knows me. Getting some praise, getting some reviews in advance is great. Book trailer is not something I've often focused on, but I think I have one. But you can do it. You can prepare your book trailer. Interviews. Maybe you could start setting up your podcast circuit. Maybe you could start setting up your radio circuit. Maybe you could start setting up your TV circuit. Maybe you could start your press campaign, right? These are some of the things you would want to think about. But when we get into marketing, when we get into press, the laundry list is just long. There is so much there. That's what I would look at, though. And mostly from your launch timeline, just have the basics ready, like your website, maybe a blog announcement, maybe a few social media posts, maybe a trailer. You don't have to have that. Having some reviews ready is a good idea. That's it. Maybe a book trailer, maybe not. Just put those pieces together in time and you'll be way ahead of most people. You might even be ahead of me if you have all that ready. My biggest mistakes, we'll talk a little bit about, and these were the 5 that I came up with. And some of them I would not even consider my fault or my mistakes specifically. And some of them I would not even consider major. But there's just lessons, there's ideas that I would love to pass on. And maybe I can help you avoid some things. Maybe I can help you speed up the process. So then it's well worth passing these on. First is, with my first book, I kind of got frustrated. And I talked a little bit about this earlier, how Amazon doesn't like competitor links. And I was like, do I have competitor links in here? But I think it even thinks of links to Amazon. It links to its own site as competitor links for some reason. So I had a friend say, well, how about this? Why don't you just put all your resources on your website and direct people a link to go to your website? Yeah, that seems like a pretty cool idea. That's what I ended up doing. I'm not going to say there's a right and a wrong way, but I think the preferred way to do this, if you're wanting to build your audience and continue to stay in touch with your readers, make it an opt-in. Make it something that people have to enter their email address for to get that value from you, those resources or whatever it is you're linking to. I did it without the call to action. I did it without sending people to a page where they could sign up for something. It was just a list of links. That was a mistake. I could have collected way more reader info, stayed in touch with way more people, maybe even had a better career. So don't do that. Collect people's email addresses or contact info as soon as possible. I talked about this next mistake, not shortening links. The easiest solution that I use, although you can use services like Bitly and stuff like that too. Bitly is pretty good. There's a plugin with WordPress called Pretty Links, Pretty links, Pretty Links. And then a very useful tool for shortening links. I can turn anything into, it could be amazon.com/DP182456/ a whole bunch of characters and I can just turn that into davidandrewweave.com/book title. And that's how I create my short links using Pretty Links. That, for whatever reason, bypasses the problem. So Amazon just doesn't want to see, I guess, barnesandnoble.com/blah, blah, blah. But if it's a short link, if it's using a link shortening service, they don't seem to care. that helps you bypass a lot of problems with any links you might include in your ebook version. Next, DPI requirements. This was a weird one. DPI refers to dots per inch, and it's referring to the resolution of image or picture that you include in your books. I had some imagery that I wanted to include in my first book, The New Music Industry, and most of it was just for formatting. It wasn't like I was trying to include a lot of pictures or illustrations. There was a little bit of that, but just like decorative elements to help support the interior design or the interior layout. And again, I don't really view this as my fault. It just sucks that I had to sit there and try to figure out as a new author. And that was this. They said something, the page on their website said something along the lines of, your images or graphics have to be 299 DPI. By the way, DPI is very easy to set in Photoshop. It's not like a hard thing to do. It's just a numerical value that you put into a form. That's all it is. It does change the size of your image because if there's more dots per inch, it's a higher resolution. That's generally how it works. So it says at least 299 DPI. I kept submitting graphics or images that were 300 DPI, which is above 299, should have worked perfectly, but it kept coming back. It didn't work. My book kept getting rejected. I said, what's going on? Finally, I submit the manuscript with DPI, all the graphics images, 299 exactly. And for some reason that worked. Absolutely ridiculous. I just hope you don't run into something like that. I guess that's all I'm saying. And if you come across these types of instructions, read them carefully, because our brains don't always interpret them, or our minds don't always interpret them correctly. Read them carefully. Make sure you're doing the right things when you're setting up your book. Next, not distributing more of my books sooner. I've recently started setting up more of my books on Draft2 Digital. Draft2 Digital puts my books up everywhere that I want them to go. But most of my books, many of my books, were only on Amazon for a very long time. Amazon does have its own extended distribution, as it were. So wherever Amazon distributes to, my books also went there. But besides that, they weren't on most major platforms that sell books, Google Play and where else, Apple and various other places. So my books were just not there. And it's kind of tedious to go back and have to do all of them. It's exciting in some ways because it's like maybe people were looking for my books over there and they should have been there all along. Yeah, the extra distribution worked favorably for my first book, The New Music Industry, so it could work very favorably for other books as well. So for me, at least, I would have distributed more of my books sooner. Of course, I wasn't aware of Draft2 Digital until a couple of years ago. I think I became aware of it by reading a Kindle, oddly enough. And it's a cool little service. But at least I knew about BookBaby. It just would have been far more costly to distribute every single book using that platform. But now there's different solutions. So I think it's worth distributing more sooner. Publishing too frequently. I say that only because I think in most cases, it's probably good if you want to properly promote a book. And if you're someone like me that also has multiple other projects and things going on at the same time, give it a year before you put out another one. I know it's tempting to just keep pumping them out. And generally, if you want to earn an income from a book, you either got to find one that's really good that people love, like a book with legs, as John Maxwell would put it, or you got to just have a lot of books so that people can actually find you and want to buy multiple of your titles because they like one of them or they like two of them or whatever it is. So, but publishing too frequently does not give you really much runway at all, because to promote, to market, to share your book out there. Because if your release schedule is every 3 months, even if the books are written, you're probably still going to be doing a little bit of writing, some last minute tweaking, some editing, maybe putting graphics together, maybe preparing your book for paperback or hardcover. So you're really not promoting or giving yourself a fair chance at sharing your book during those periods. So I don't have the answers, but I kind of feel like publishing too frequently could hold you back if you want to see your book get out there more. Giving yourself at least a year of runway to execute your promotion plan is probably ideal. And that's what I had for you. Hope that answered all your questions. Would you like to be featured in our Facebook group of over 2,100 members? Spark Infinity began as a place for creatives, by creatives, for creators, by creators, and it still is. And the thing we're interested in most is your story. We're more than happy to create presentations to share insights with you as we've done today. And we're hearing people have been enjoying this series. But the thing that brings us the greatest joy is spotlighting you, giving you an opportunity to share your story. Whether it's in an interview, a casual conversation, a round table, or even a show and tell, we're happy to accommodate whatever format suits you best. So if you're ready to go live with us, drop a me in the chat or in the comments. We look forward to talking with you. We still have a lot of people in the group who aren't entirely familiar with the way things work in Spark Infinity. I still see some of you posting your books or your affiliate links or other products or recommendations. We're all here to serve each other. So I don't want to see any of that promotional stuff until you've been on our show at least once. And what better way to showcase your work than to be featured on our show for 30 to 60 minutes? You can talk about all your products, all your affiliate offers. You can talk endlessly and as much as you want about them. So what better way? Again, we're all about spotlighting people, but prefer to do it the right way. Drop a me in the chat if you're ready to go live with us, and I'll be in touch. Okay, well, let's go to the chat and see if there's anything else that people would like to talk about or cover today. I wish this would all show up in StreamYard, but it doesn't necessarily. Usually end up having to go to the individual platforms to see the comments that people have left. And very generally, it's usually Savannah leaving a lot of comments on different things. Let's see if there's anything here that we need to address here. No, I think the chats have been quiet tonight, and that's okay. I hope you've gotten a lot of value out of this, and we'll conclude our series on self-publishing next time. See you again soon.